secret that we love Dark Souls here at Snowman Gaming, so I'm always on the lookout for that next great game to give me a similar experience. Brutal difficulty, interconnected world, satisfying accomplishment. And I think I've already found 2017's best challenging gem. You need to play Nioh. Seriously, it's Japanese samurai Dark Souls, like what more do you need?
Right off the bat, it's pretty obvious to see the similarities to its Souls-like brethren, so let's just get that stuff out of the way here at the beginning. You still rest at bonfires, but instead it's praying at shrines. You collect souls to level up, but they're called Amrita now. Your stamina bar is renamed the Ki bar, and of course, it's still really hard. It's clear to see the influences in the level design, as each stage has one-sided doors to unlock shortcuts that loop back to the beginning, and multiple paths that eventually reconnect to the same goal at the end. But unlike Dark Souls, Nioh doesn't have a giant open-ended world to explore. Instead, it's more mission-based, and each area is self-contained. This isn't necessarily bad, but it does give you a basic structure of what each level is going to be like. You'll always start with a shrine to rest at, kill some baddies, unlock new paths, and finally struggle against an intimidating boss fight. And each stage can normally be completed in about an hour. Again, not bad, it just splits the game into digestible chunks. It even has sub-missions to break up the action, from going monster hunting to retrieving stolen artifacts, to straight up bonus boss fights. It was really fascinating to see repurposed areas used for new content, and for the most part, they were just as fun as the regular missions. But this is about where the similarities to Dark Souls end. The rest is pretty unique, especially the setting. The Japanese aesthetic is very apparent right from the get-go, and this makes the story much less serious, as you'll speak with talking cat spirits and spar against pipe-smoking frog ninjas. In fact, to increase your elixir count, you have to collect these lovable little green guys called kodamas. Seriously, look at this guy. He's tired and tipped his hat to cover his eyes. That's adorable. But essentially, you play as William, who escapes from a London prison and is confronted with the evil, vile, notorious Kelly.
Really? That's the name we're going with. All right.
But he takes your guardian spirit, so you go on a quest to get her back. You meet some new friends along the way, and it eventually leads to an all-out war across Japan. In addition to enemy soldiers, you're also fighting against demons called yokai, which are much harder and always put up quite the challenge. They introduce new ones all the time, so whenever I see this dark mist in the distance, I get scared and have to mentally prepare myself before taking them on. Like, one time this wall had eyes, so I hit it and oh man, what the heck is going on? But overall, the story is more tangible and easier to understand than Dark Souls, so that was refreshing. Now, the combat on the other hand is much more complex than you may be used to from other Souls games. There are a ton of different weapon types to use, from swords and spears to chains and sickles, but I normally stuck with axes and hammers since they do the most damage. There's also ranged weapons like bows and guns, but ammo is very limited for them, so it's best to use them in a pinch or to snipe an unsuspecting victim rather than your main damage source. But what's cool is there are 3 different stances to use for certain situations. Low stance attacks in quick succession but does minimal damage, so this is good to use against faster enemies or ones that are low to the ground. High stance does colossal damage but takes a huge windup that could leave you exposed, making it great for slow but sturdy foes. And mid stance is right in between the two, which is the one I ended up using most. But sometimes there are real benefits of switching it up. Like if enemies are vulnerable to elemental attacks, I might change to low stance to get as many hits in as I can for maximum carnage. Or if an opponent is extremely defensive, I'll whack him with as much power as I can to break his guard. Ki plays a bigger role in fights too. The villain's stamina bars are always visible so you can see when they're running low. This is a great opportunity to grapple them and do insane amounts of damage. Yokai are even more unique because they can't recover any ki unless they create this purple realm thing. So a decent strategy is to just let them run out of energy and then wail on them while they try to recover. Now, your ki is vitally important as well. Something Nioh has added is called a ki pulse, which allows you to quickly recover your ki as it's recharging by pressing R1. It sort of reminds me of Gears of War, where you can reload faster if you time it right. This lets you utilize combos by stunning an enemy, refilling ki, and continuing to punish them. It feels really satisfying and much less cumbersome as you now have many ways to face a confrontation. Furthermore, Nioh has a living weapon mode that makes you invincible for a short time, so you can just just go to town on these guys. But this is charged by collecting Amrita, so you have to use it wisely. It makes boss fights really interesting because you only get one chance. Do I use my living weapon now, or wait until I learn its patterns more? It refills relatively quick though, and you can equip different spirits for various effects. So it just adds more depth to the already stellar combat. Also, a neat little addition is that when other players die, they don't just leave behind a bloodstain. Instead, their grave can be fought for some extra loot. In fact, you get a ton of armor and equipment over the course of your journey, so you'll need to check your stock often and upgrade as you get better stuff. It's best not to get attached to any particular sword or chest plate because you'll constantly be finding superior items, which is good because the enemies get tougher and tougher as well. There is a blacksmith where you can upgrade equipment, but I found it sort of unnecessary because you'll always find something better shortly down the road. Actually, there's lots of other things to upgrade too, like ninjutsu skills, new techniques, or title rewards. It's just, At the end of the day, Nioh is about hitting stuff and not getting hit yourself. It's extremely difficult, but it's always fair. You just need to learn how the system works. In the beginning, I really struggled. My file names went through a roller coaster of emotion. I found myself dying really quickly. Enemies do way more damage than I remember any Souls game doing, and it's easy to get locked into a combo if you're not careful. But over time, I learned how to improve and fight back. These bats knocked me off a cliff when I didn't know what I was doing, but now I know to block them or dash back onto safe ground if I'm about to fall. In the first stage, these guys ambushed me and there's no way I could beat them all. So I looked around and found an alternate path to take them down one by one. You see, Nioh is just different enough that it gave me that feeling of learning Dark Souls for the first time again. It's really interesting to see a different dev team take on a similar genre, and it makes me appreciate well thought out level design each time I find it. Nioh is the difference between finishing a game and beating a game. You have to put in hard work to overcome. It's long. There are a ton of missions, side missions, and even Twilight missions that are just cruel. I mean, look at this. But nothing beats that feeling of taking down a boss that you wrestled with for hours, and your heart is beating out of your chest, but you know you did it. You have won. If you're up for the challenge, I can't recommend this game enough. There's a load of content just waiting to be bested, and I can say with absolute confidence that you need to play Nioh. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Stay frosty, my friends. Hey, you should subscribe. Lots more cool stuff here. Follow me on Twitter. Also Patreon, that's a thing. These people are cool. Bye.